I was recently on travel, and I was in Guam. On my way to Yap, I shared some time with my son's children and his family. And while waiting to catch the flight to Yap, the recent typhoon that hit at Guam, uh, canceled all the flights. All the flights were canceled, and so I was I got stuck in Guam, which was a good thing because my son had left for the States, and his young family were there alone, and so I thank God that I was there, that me and my wife were there, and we were able to be with them during those difficult times during the typhoon. Of course, the typhoon was devastating, and it was hard. A lot of houses were damaged, a lot of things, infrastructures were damaged. But in the aftermath of the typhoon, there was no power, there was no water, and of course, people were struggling in repairing their house and trying just to. The fact that there was no power was really tough, and water, and our vehicles became the one of the most important things that for our daily living, because I found out that I depended on the car that I was driving. I had to. That was the only place that we could charge my cell phone. We could charge the small fans that we use at night to cool us off. And so, and in that sense, everybody in Guam was feeling the impact of aftermath of the typhoon, and vehicles suddenly became a critical part of daily living, of getting through day by day. And with the number of vehicles on Guam, of course, there's quite a number, and so fueling up at the gas station became something that threw people into panic. I think there was no fear. I mean, there was fear, but there was no. The issue of Guam running out of fuel was not an issue. But of course, people didn't know that. People don't. So it kind of threw people into panic as to, we might not have gas. We don't have gas. We can't drive. We can't go, and we can't charge our cell phone. We'll be, out of communication, and we won't be able to call each other and talk to our loved ones. And so all of this, kind of threw people into panic. In everyday living, I know now that in everyday living, there are things that we are tempted with, little things that sometimes we don't even consider as an issue. It was on a Sabbath, so we and my wife went to church, and after church we came back, and we just went back to where we were staying, my son's apartment. It was still leaking, but they were working on it, and so we were hoping that when they start working on Monday, that they could complete the work in 1 week. And so we got in the car way in the afternoon. We got in the car and we drove around, and on the way back, we saw that all the lines at gas station, there was lines that was more than a mile. All of the gas stations had lines, long lines, and I knew this was a big challenge for everybody, because staying in line. We've noticed that the day before, It was the same thing, and it was getting longer and longer every day. And there were cars that ran out of fuel just staying in line to get fuel. So it's a big challenge, and it was not helping in calming down the fear of running out of fuel. And so as we were heading back home, we passed through we were nearing this gas station that was near to where we were staying. And then I noticed that the line was much shorter. So instinctively, and just out of thinking that this line is really short, I pulled in. And of course, this was the Sabbath. This was the Sabbath. And I pulled in, and as I said, instinctively I pulled in because there was this need for fuel to fuel up my car. My fuel was really getting low. And I knew that if I didn't fuel, I might have to park the car and not drive it, and find some other way to get fuel to the car. So I pulled in, and as I got in line, I could see that people started lining up behind me. I was looking at the back mirror and said, "Oh." And people just kept pulling in, and then that line just went way long. Now, lines like this, when you get into lines like this, it's easier to pull out when you're way down the line. It's easier to pull out. You said, "Oh, I can't. It's too hot." Of course, because when you pull in, you turn off your vehicle, turn off the aircon so that you use less gas, and so it's much easier to pull out from way in the back. But the closer you inch your way, the closer you get to being, getting your turn to get fuel, to buy fuel, the harder it gets to pull out. It doesn't make sense for people when you get there and then you pull out. But as I pulled in and I was getting closer, this was the Sabbath, and I knew it was the Sabbath. But this was good for me because I had to have gas. I had to. If I didn't have gas, I wouldn't be able to get in touch with my other children. I wouldn't be able to drive anywhere. I wouldn't be able to charge my cell phone and fan, and it would be terrible sleeping at night without aircon, without a fan. So but I was in line for quite some time, for about 30 minutes, and my heart was being convicted. And this is the Sabbath. But on the other hand, I was thinking, but I have to have fuel. How can I get fuel? Otherwise, these lines are always long, and I might not be able to make it until tomorrow. And my heart was being convicted with thoughts, and I was in thought of this being the Sabbath, and I was getting closer and closer to the line. And there was about 3 or 4 cars right in front of me, and 3 or 4 cars in front of you're practically at the gas station. But it was at that point that I knew it was wrong. And I said, "No, we're pulling out." So we pulled out. And as much as we needed gas, I said, God will provide. He will provide. And we pulled out and just went home and parked the car, and I told my wife, "That's it. We're not gonna drive to anywhere tomorrow or tonight. We can charge because we can turn on the car and continue charging, and that's it. Tomorrow, we won't be able to go anywhere." And I didn't feel, when I left, that's the good thing about this, because when I left, I felt good. I really felt good. I felt relieved. And I was thinking, what would have happened if I had really gotten gas? Would I feel this way? I don't think so. No, I was confident that I would not feel this way. I really actually felt better. I felt relieved. I said, "Oh, like a weight had been lifted off." And I knew this was the right thing. So said, I believed. I said, God will provide. So I went home. We went home, and of course we got through the night. The next day, there was no way the car could go. I didn't want a chance to taking the car out on the road and running out of fuel. And this is where, God takes care of His people. When we put God first, God will take care of you. And everything that God does, there is a purpose. And this really strengthened my faith in God all the more, because on the next day, it was a Sunday, I got a call. They said, hey, I'm in line and I can get gas for you. And I said, oh, thank you very much. Sure, I'll gladly pay. No, don't worry about that. Don't worry, because this was my brother-in-law. He heard that I might have to go get in line for fuel, and so he went and got in line early that day. And before he went, he just took a 5-gallon container. He said, "Oh, maybe I get some gas for cars." So he called me, just so that I know and I don't have to go get in line. I said, "Praise God." I said, "Thank you." And and it wasn't long, and he came back with a 5-gallon container full of gas. And but before he came, my other son-in-law, his wife called, my daughter called and said, "Hey, we have a 5-gallon for you." 5 gallon? What? Fuel. And I said, I already got 5 gallon. I'm going to be getting 5 gallons soon. He said, no, this is for you. And she told me that her husband said, no, that's for your father. Yeah. And so on that day that I expected to have no chance at all to charge anything to drive anywhere for food or anything, I got 10 gallons of fuel free. And they said, no, don't pay it back. You're not. And so it was much better than if I had stayed in line on Sabbath. I would have spent money. And I know that coming out from that line, that was the right thing to do, because I felt it. If I had stayed and I had come out, it would have been a conscience on me afterwards and things like that. And I would have to spend some money. But these people, they gave me, they refused to take money. They said, no, use it. And so I really praise God for these things that happen. And I've shared this with people, because the thing is, these are the little things that we don't consider of as a sin, because it's something that we need. It is something that is important to our family, to my family. It shouldn't be a sin. But the Bible tells us that is the Sabbath. On the Sabbath, it's His day, and everything that we do, we should do for Him and not against Him. And I wanted to share that because in our minds as human beings, as sinners, as people living on this sinful world, we sort of categorize these things as sins. Oh, that's a big sin. That's a small sin. But the Bible doesn't. The Bible doesn't categorize sin. Sin is sin, and the wages of sin is death. And sometimes we justify what we do because it's a small sin, and it's very important that we have to do this. And that's the same way I felt when I was going in. Of course, it's family. My family. I have to help my family. And so, this kind of temptation we will face. We likely face on a daily basis, and we need to have faith all the more, and we need to have the ability that when we see these things, that we can identify it as sin. Sometimes we feel that, oh, it's nothing, it's too small. It is small, but it is these little things that add up. It is these little things that add up and end up to where we do commit bigger sins. And I've shared this. I arrived, and on the first Sunday, I took part in our prison ministry, Bible study that we do with the prisoners, and I shared it with them. I was asked if there was anything I wanted to share, and this immediately came to mind because I know that as small as it is, the way I looked at it, I know other people can fall into the same condition, same trap that God's adversary tries to get us to entice us to do this. Look, that line was really short. I could get in and get out very soon. And when I got in, the line suddenly became so long that it made me feel, yeah, this is the right place to be. I cannot, if I pull out, look at this line. These are the things that we really need to be conscious of, to be aware of, and to make sure that we keep our faith with Him, and we abide in Him, and He abides in us.